Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
I think I know most everybody, but maybe a few faces. I don't know what we've met. But I'm Luciana Spraker. I'm the director of the Municipal Archives. And we're so pleased that you've come back for our April Hungry for History talk. Before we get into today's program, I want to give you a heads up on some upcoming, hitting her thing, some upcoming programs. So today is the first of 3 talks, 3 months in a row, where we're focusing on historic sites that have become museums. So learning about the history of those sites before they were a museum, how they ended up being a museum. So next month on May 22nd, which is a Wednesday, we're going to have Janie Bratt from the Flannery O'Connor Childhood Home. And then on Monday, June 17th, we're going to have Jamie Cradle, who's going to talk with us about the history of Green Meldrum House. So both exciting stories and sites, so I hope you'll come back for those. We're also going to be hosting a new exhibit in the first floor rotunda starting in May, and we're going to have an artist talk with that. So Paige Byrne is a local artist and teacher, and she's going to be sharing a selection on display from her series on Savannah squares, which are really kind of fun, exciting interpretations of the squares, very colorful. And she's going to give us an artist talk on Wednesday, May 8th. That one's going to be at 4:15, so the end of the day. And then following her talk, we'll all go down to the rotunda, and you can talk to her about the pieces while you're looking at those. So those are upcoming programs. If you're not getting our emails directly for notifications, you can just give me your email address before you leave today. So with that, I want to get into today's program. So I'm so pleased to have Molly Carrott Taylor here with us. She's the executive director of the Sea Maritime Museum. And Molly is originally from Kansas City. She holds a master's degree in arts administration from Columbia University and a bachelor's degree in art history from Connecticut College. She began her career at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and later led arts and cultural development on the World Trade Center site for the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. After relocating to Savannah in 2008, she continued her work at the Telfair Museums, where she served as both director of development and then deputy director. She focused there on museum management, strategy, and fundraising. In 2020, she launched her own consulting practice, providing both nonprofit and for-profit companies with specialized business development, client acquisition, marketing, and fundraising services. Her distinct and varied work in museum administration and strategy across the Eastern Seaboard now informs her current role as executive director at Ships of the Sea. And she's working on expanding their engagement among a variety of diverse audiences. So with that, I'm going to thank Molly for coming and turn it over to her.
Thanks, Luciana.
I appreciate that. I'm thrilled to be here with you. It's always exciting to tell people about Ships of the Sea. Most people say to me, oh, I've been to the Garden for a music fest or jazz fest or a nonprofit fundraiser of some kind, but I've never entered the building. So I'm giving you a preview, and then I hope that everyone will come back and visit us. So I started in this job a year and a month ago, and I too have a little maritime past, which luckily wasn't in my bio, so I'm not repeating something Luciana's already said. I grew up in Kansas City, which is very landlocked, but my family spent summers in northern Michigan, and I went to a summer camp for 6 weeks during high school called Culver Military Academy, and they had a 3-masted schooner. So the Ledbetter is on the left, and that's me on the top on the right. I was the mizzen royal sail, which is the back top sail. We did not belay ourselves. We did not wear helmets. Kids these days would have all of that. So it was really a fun adventure. You have to figure out how to climb those ladders that you can sort of see running up the side. You had to climb out on the spars, which are the horizontal wooden structures that hold the top of each sail. You had to unfurl the sail, then you had to climb back down, and they had ropes at the bottom that you would pull to move your sail left and right. It was really fun. So I enjoyed it. Here we are again. That's me on the left. That's Bill Koch, one of the famous Koch brothers on the right. He contributed a whole bunch of sailboats to the summer camp, and including mini Maxis, which are America's Cup Regatta boats, the former one design that they had, just in a smaller version. And so we would take those out. It was quite fun and nice to have him there. So he took pictures and sent them to all the kids. It was a military organized camp. That's me on the left. I was the regimental adjutant, which is the number 2 person in the camp, in the upper camp. You could sail. Those are sailors on the left, aviation guys on the center, and then there's a cavalry that is not seen there, but it was a really fun time. My kids go, they're fourth generation to go to this camp. It is a little weird, but if you need structure for a kid, it's really pretty awesome. So that's me telling everyone what to do. You can see the lake in the background. So after doing my summers in between high school, sailing at Culver, I then went to Connecticut College. I sailed competitively on the sailing team. And this is what current college sailors look like. That is a 420 boat that we sailed on. It's a two-person boat. I was a crew person, so I would have been in the front hanging off the boat like that. In 1994, 95, it looked like this because we didn't have good digital cameras. And so that's our boat number 17 on the left and me in the red life jacket on the far left side. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. I traveled all up and down the eastern seaboard, sailing against other teams. I spent summer after freshman year teaching sailing on Cape Cod. So I have this, sort of maritime background. And that meant that when it came time to think about considering the job of executive director at Ships of the Sea, I really did feel sort of a calling to it, because Ships of the Sea is like, the perfect historic house, art museum, mashed up with a maritime collection and maritime stories, which make it all really fun to learn about and share with other people. So Savannah's maritime story starts with James Oglethorpe, who arrived on a ship, the Anne, this is a model in Ships of the Sea of the Anne. The Anne arrived in 1733, as we all know, February 12th. Really, they pulled into Beaufort. This ship could not get up the Savannah River, and they took other smaller ships around the corner to reach Savannah's Bluff. As you all know, Oglethorpe laid out the beautiful master plan of Savannah, and Ships of the Sea is on that far right side, over here, off what was West Broad Street, and you can sort of see that in the map labeled there. This is what it would have looked like. I love these sorts of pieces of art. I'm sure Luciana has tons more in her collection that I probably should come look at. But trying to imagine the growing metropolis of Savannah, ships coming in all the time, unloading cargo, people coming hither and yon. It was really a global connector. People were coming from all over the world. And Savannah's products, which then and now are still, well, not now exactly, but cargo included cotton, lumber, and rosin, which would have been a byproduct of pine sap created into turpentine and things like that. So 1819 was a big year for the Scarbrough family. William Scarbrough on the right. This is based off a miniature that HSF had. They enlarged it. It's not quite as big as Julia, his wife, on the left, but they're nice portraits of this couple. He was at his height of his wealth in 1819. He was the lead investor and the president of the Steamship Savannah Company. You can see the Steamship Savannah here in a beautiful painting. They constructed the Scarbrough House in 1818. It opened, they moved in March of 1819. President Monroe came to the house in 1819 in May to christen the first voyage of the steamship Savannah on a transoceanic journey. It was the first steamship to go over any ocean. They took the ship from Savannah to Liverpool, England. And let me just briefly mention, a steamship is basically a schooner, like my Leadbetter that I was on at camp, three-masted, but it has an engine in the middle of it, with the chimney blowing black smoke out of it and paddle wheels slapped on the side. I like to say that it's a little bit like Elon Musk. He's taking two different kinds of technology, putting them together in one vehicle to make the whole thing more efficient and work faster. And it worked. So Steamship Savannah goes across the ocean in 1 month when it usually would have taken 2 months. When the wind dies, he would crank up his paddle wheels and continue moving forward. So he pulled into Liverpool, thinking he was going to get a great welcome, and people were like, oh my God, that ship is on fire. If they pull in, they're going to burn down the rest of the port. So it wasn't the most auspicious beginning, but he, Scarbrough had a vision, and I think he was an awesome entrepreneur for doing it. He ended up going as far east as St. Petersburg. They stopped in Helsinki. They stopped in Arendelle, Norway, other places, trying to sell the ship. It was it was like the Tesla. You want to get some investors. He did not manage to do that. The Tsar of Russia said to him, "There's not enough space in your hold for sailors and cargo, which is the thing you need. Either you're going to move people or you're going to move stuff." So, sadly, the steamship Savannah comes back in 1819, and unfortunately, Scarborough is rendered an insolvent debtor because he hasn't recouped his investment. He invested $60,000 in the ship. He sold it for $6,000. So he lost a tremendous amount. Additionally, when the ship returned, there was a yellow fever outbreak. There was a recession in Savannah. They had a fire. It was like everything that could have gone wrong did. The fortunate thing, his brother-in-law was a very wealthy man, Robert Isaac. And Robert Isaac, when Scarborough's debt was being auctioned off on the front steps of City Hall, Isaac stands up and says, "I'd buy the debt," and allowed the family to remain in the Scarbrough House for 30 years. So that helped. Here is the beautiful mansion that they built. Originally, it had 2 stories. So the third story is something that Scarborough's son-in-law adds in the 1850s, so that he and his wife and their family could have the top floor of the building. And supposedly they didn't get along very well. Godfrey Barnsley was British. The Scarboroughs did have slaves, enslaved people working for them. Barnsley would supposedly tip the slaves at dinner, which was a common practice in Great Britain, to show his respect and appreciation for what they were doing. Scarborough did not like that habit. Take note of the 2 trees that are in the front, because those will continue to grow larger as we move through this presentation. The interior of the house would have looked something like this. The cornices still have that same patterning on them. It is a really beautiful classical Regency building, and Historic Savannah first did a restoration in the 1970s. Mills Lane IV did another restoration in the 1990s, all of it intending to bring the house back to its glory of 1819 when William J. designed it and constructed it. Here are a few more renderings that were made of what it might have looked like. This is the atrium, which now has a ship model in the center and yellow walls. You'll have to come back to see the difference. This I love. I don't know. Do you know where this is? You have it in your collection, don't
It's
you?
on display downstairs in the archives if anybody wants to see
Love it. Well, we should all go look at it. I feel like this is sort of a touchstone for Savannah today and Savannah of Scarborough's era. This is a piece of what was a piece of ballast stone taken out of a funeral. It's a funeral plaque, Chinese funerary plaque that was picked up in China, put in the ship to hold the ship steady as weight in the bottom of it, ballast, and came around the globe. And someone offloaded the ballast, which is all the stones that are along River Street. They didn't need it anymore, and so they'd throw them on. They probably had like a stack that sort of came on and off with every ship that came in and out. And for a long time, it was in the street of Savannah. And I don't know if it was Robin Williams who brought it up to you, but he knew about it and said, "Oh my God, this is so cool. Chinese funeral stone put in the street of Savannah." So the city wisely picked it up. But I think it is wonderful because it just shows what a metropolitan place we are. And it's like a 15th century, 1790s. Okay, still really old. Ships of the Sea's history has a trajectory that has sort of 3 phases. 50 years as a building, as a home for people. 90 years as a school for Black children, which is what we're going to talk about next. And then 50 years inhabited by Historic Savannah Foundation, Telfair Museums for 4 years, and then Ships of the Sea. And sort of empty for a while as well. So trees are getting bigger. Here's the house in the late 1800s. Here are darling children in front of their school. At its height, there were about 800 Black kids in 3 stories of this building. The kitchen was in the basement. Ships of the Sea did a oral history of people who had finished or who went to the West Broad Street School. And the exhibition happened in about 2011, 12. And there's an online exhibition that you can still reference, and you can see oral history from these people. It's really quite moving. They were known for their dramatic productions. which I think this is really sweet. They're all dressed up. This is a graduation day. Everyone in their little dresses and clean white socks. So West Broad Street School and Brown versus Board of Education happened in 1954. West Broad Street School was not closed until 1962. At that point, all the kids were integrated into other Savannah schools, and the building sort of sat empty and derelict for a while. In 1972, Historic Savannah buys it, spends 4 years renovating it, and it's their headquarters for about 10 years. They found that it was too expensive to own and maintain, tried to sell it to Telfair so that they could own 3 William J. buildings. They ended up finding the same things. And Mills Lane, luckily, wanted to move his father's collection from River Street, where it was, to Ships of the Sea, so that William Scarbrough, ostensibly the hero of maritime, history in the 1800s, the maritime collection could be housed in his former home. So just a brief history of some of the ships and history that we cover at Ships of the Sea. 1859, the slave ship Wanderer goes to Western Africa, picks up 400 Africans, enslaves them, and brings them back. They're dropped off at Jekyll Island. The captain and the crew arrested for transatlantic slave trade, which was barred 50 years prior. The ship was owned by a man named Charlie Lamar, who was the son of Gazaway Lamar. And if anyone's read the book Surviving Savannah, Gazaway Lamar built the ship Pulaski, which I don't think I have a picture of, but it sunk off the coast of North Carolina. Someone found the treasure in 2018, and some of it's on view still at Ships of the Sea. So you can come back and see this, the Pulaski, which his dad owned. We have ironclads that go that are sort of swapped between the Union and the Confederacy. Monitors. This is the yacht America, which first won the America's Cup regatta. It's renamed the Camilla and became a blockade runner for the Confederates. You can see Fort Pulaski featured on the left-hand side of the image. This one is really fun because I don't have a shot wide enough to include the frame, but most of the models are sitting in cases. The America is different because it's sort of flat. You can't see all the way through it, obviously. You can see this painting behind it. It has a little frame, and it's mounted as though it's shushing through the Savannah River, which I think is really fun. The model maker was a man named William Hitchcock. He built the majority of the 30-plus models that are on view at Ships of the Sea. Every model on the first floor is to the same scale, 3/8 of an inch to 1 foot. So when you walk through the rooms, you get a sense of which ships are large, which ships are small. 1906, we have an old photo of shipments being loaded on ships and sailing away. It's funny to me because I always picture 1906 as like, there are engines, there are large steamships, but we're still using sailing ships to move cargo. It's kind of interesting. 1914, 99 Liberty ships made in Savannah. Those, again, cargo and Liberty ships have the cranes that move the supplies on and off. Those ships would have brought supplies to major aircraft carriers, the USS Savannah, which was fighting in the Mediterranean in World War II, made very large football field-sized, 2 football field-sized ships. 1917, this is a Navy Curtiss HS type flying boat landing near Southern States Fertilizer, which becomes Delaney Industries, which is just east of the Truman Parkway on President Street. So our, waterfront has changed a lot in the last 200 years since Scarborough built his house. Here's an Atlantic towing tug. That's not changed so much. The tugs still look like that. Soldiers returning after World War I on a ship, pulling into Savannah. You can see City Hall there. It's dome. Again, City Hall on the right-hand side and the Swedish armored cruiser in front. It's pretty stunning to see that. It's a little, maybe not as big as a cargo ship, which we're used to seeing, but still I feel like anything this impressive on our waterfront is pretty neat. Liberty ships, again, 1941 to 45, made tons here, many in Brunswick. Women were involved in making that happen. 20th century fishing boats, which luckily still happens, but mainly not in Savannah's river port, but towards Tybee. Okay, so 1970 through the 30s, we have Juliette Gordon-Low, founder of the Girl Scouts. She also found something called the Girl Scout Mariners, which I was not a Girl Scout, so I didn't know about this until I started at Ships of the Sea. And she is featured here in the center on the left, looking really sweet in her uniform with her Girl Scouts. And then the Girl Scout on the right, who I just think is an exhilaration over sailing this ship. It's really cute. Juliette Gordon-Low, I found this quote, "Never rock a boat for fun," she says. "A scout who so far forgets herself as to do such a foolhardy act should be forbidden to go into a boat again for some time as a punishment. Most drowning accidents are from such fun. It is sin, not fun." She was really a great sailor. Yeah, and I love the fact that she's, trying to get kids to learn these things. So here are a bunch of Girl Scout Mariners in their cute uniforms. We have one Girl Scout Mariners uniform in our collection that is very sweet, and another just plain Girl Scout uniform. If anyone sees more or knows of some, we'd love to add to that. The girl on the right is repairing a sail. And maritime industry was still a very big deal back in that day. 1966 to 1997, Ships of the Sea is on River Street. I feel like it looks like a cross between a Chinese restaurant and a Pizza Hut. The entrance is very unassuming. The 3 stories, I think this is looking at it, the entrance from River Street. So you could walk in there and walk up the 3 flights and out bay, or vice versa, come in on bay and walk down. The main part of the collection was created and collected by Mills Lane Jr., who was the president of Citizens and Southern Bank. It was out of Valdosta originally. His father started it. He grew up in the, they call it the Lane House, but it's the house on the northwest corner of Drayton and Gaston, red brick with beautiful columns in the front. It had been owned by Richard Kessler. I think Ralston College has just taken it over. And it's a beautiful, beautiful house. So that's where Mills Lane Jr. grew up. He had a passion for maritime objects. So he collected models, the type that you can see here, not very large. Many of these are made by a Savannah named Galatini, who was in the maritime industries. I don't know if he was a stevedore deckhand of some kind, but he had this passion for making models. So we have lots and lots of those, lots of the photographs that you can see, figureheads, scrimshaw pieces that are whale teeth carved with scenes that sailors were bored. They carved a scene on there, rubbed something dark into the tooth, and then it was sold as or kept as a memento. As I said before, 1872 to 76, Historic Savannah Foundation acquires the building. It's generally been empty for 10 years, and so it's not in great shape. They end up having to gut renovate the interior of it. The floors are not original. We have pictures, here you go, of what it looked like. I do think the school light is kind of cute because school lights, I think, still look like that. It's like not much has changed. The plaster was all pulled off the walls and redone, fireplaces reconstructed, and here's the drawing, the conjectural restoration of the William Scarbrough House to what they think William J. might have had. Because the 3rd story was added, there was enough changed inside and lost during the 90 years of it being a black school. This was sort of the best that they could do. 10% of the interior architectural elements like cornices, columns remained, so they had an idea of what it might have looked like, but the original furnishings are not obvious. This is the front as Historic Savannah preserved it. We just this week took a scaffolding down. We have done a new restoration. It seems that every 50 years you have to keep up your 200-year-old building, and so we have repointed. There were cracks that were coming down the front and water intrusion happening inside, so we have drilled out all the cracks, refilled it with silicone so that the building can expand and contract in a way that it wasn't able to with its original material. Hopefully improving on that because Savannah weather, is very hot and very cold, and so we've tried to make that better. This is the back of the house as Historic Savannah preserved it. Note that it has a double staircase leading up to the garden, what was the garden entrance. Originally, Pine Street came across that far side. And Mills Lane, literally like right next to the house, was a street. There was barely a wall separating the two. Mills Lane said to the city, you know, I really think you should close Pine Street. Let me take it over. I'm going to buy the piece of land between Pine and Orange Street, which is sort of the jog north of Broughton Street, if you were to continue Broughton. And they let him, luckily, and so that sort of expanded everything. Historic Savannah must have had a role in that, because this is their picture. They designed the original gardens. Mills, when he took it over, redesigned it again into what you see today. So, 1996, the museum relocates to Scarbrough House. Mills, as I mentioned, redoes the garden front staircase into a single stair. He wanted something impressive. He mimicked, he looked at other William J. buildings and sort of decided what he felt was the right thing. Did the plantings. All the trees and bushes are now literally like taller than me. So it's a sea of green most days. This is the atrium as it was restored to in 1996. The walls of the atrium are faux painted marble. So when William Scarbrough was in the house, it would have been very fancy and of the highest quality to get a painter to come in and faux paint your building rather than actually putting marble on the walls. So he did that. I'm sure there weren't many of them, and you had to make reservations in advance and get them to sit in your house for however many weeks to paint your faux painting on it. Even the doors are faux mahogany. You can see some there open. Beautiful Diocletian window, which we've also just fixed because it was leaking. You can't see it above there, but there is a skylight at the top that, when the Scarboroughs were there, would have been a louvered skylight so that you could open it up and get airflow coming through. They did not stay for the summers. They went to New York, but it's hot and it's April, so if they were here, they would have opened that up and gotten the airflow going. Today, this is what it looks like. This is another USS Savannah. There are probably like 15 of them. We have a few pictured in the building. This one was active during the Civil War. View from the top. The second story, this is the second story of the atrium, which I do love. It makes it a little difficult to display art and things like that. We do rotating exhibitions, which I'll talk about at the end, on the walls up and down. And the skylight does make this such a glamorous shot. Here are the guys on top of the USS Savannah doing their work, climbing the sails, same thing that I was doing, unfurling the sails. Nothing changes if you're on a schooner. Got to do the same job. This is a shot of the ballroom and what it looks like today. Beautiful ships. That's the Anne on the left-hand side. The Languedoc in the middle, which was a French ship working on behalf of the Americans during the American Revolution, fighting the British. And the Languedoc's goal was to block the British blockade of the Savannah River. They were unsuccessful, but it is a really beautiful ship, and so we have it in our collection. The Wanderer, you can see just through the corner here. And the Pulaski is over here, and the little pieces of archaeology brought up from the bottom of the ocean are off to the right of that. Here are people inside looking around. So my goal presently is to get as many people involved with Ships of the Sea as possible. And I don't know if you've read the Connect magazine this month, but Ships of the Sea is featured in it, all of our education programs and what we're doing to improve it. We have so many partners. I had Paul Presley tell me the other day, he was like, it's almost too much, Molly. I was like, all right, well, we got to do a lot in order to see what works, and maybe we'll hone it down later. But these are actually SCAD grads featured in the picture. They came over as a favor, but we have had 2 SCAD classes work with us. In the fall was Museum Studies class, which Irini was in, and she's now an intern. Thank God, we've enticed them so much that they want to come back. And then the winter quarter, we had Curatorial Studies. They did a project on if we could rehang our maritime paintings, what would we do? And so they did a proposal on that. We can't pull it off because there are lots of complications, but we're hoping in the future that we might be able to do part of what they recommended. Our collection includes, these are the maritime objects that are sort of upstairs. Downstairs is really focused on models and paintings. Upstairs, these are instruments that would have been used for shipbuilding. So you needed lots of boring tools. You would put holes in the wood of the ribs of the ship and then stick pegs through them. It was very traditional and tried and true methods. Calipers down below, figurehead on the left. I swear our figureheads are like the ugliest people on the planet. But it's interesting, and supposedly they had exaggerated features so that when you were standing below them, you could see, generally what looked like a person, maybe an attractive person. I'm not sure how she looked from the land. This guy would have been like an advertisement. So he would have stood outside of a store in England advertising that you could come in and get ship instruments there, nautical instruments. People often didn't read. Even if you were talented enough to read a navigational chart, it didn't mean you read books. So this is the Scrimshaw collection, just a little sliver of it. I love this case. It's my favorite. You can see front and center is a dolphin jaw, and the dolphin jaw has written on it right here, Stella. So some, seaman was either writing his beloved or maybe his daughter, or who knows, onto this dolphin jaw, which is a little creepy looking, but it's pretty cool. Other things that are in here, these are ram's horns, which obviously are not ivory, but it still is really beautiful example of scrimshaw. The short teeth are sperm whale. The longer teeth are walrus tusks. This is an ostrich egg. On the far right-hand side, there are carved coconuts. And then down here are baleen whale teeth. So they would have been the filtering teeth that filter krill. There's one carved dolphin here. This is my favorite because, and you probably can't see it from the back, but it looks like a dolphin with an open mouth, and it looks exactly like the downspouts that you see throughout historic Savannah, where the downspout comes down and the water from the gutters goes out the mouth of a dolphin. Each one of these pieces is really beautifully made. It's just exceptional artistry. Each person obviously had different inspiration. Maybe it was made up. Maybe they were doing the ship that they were on. Maybe they were making their beloved's face. There's some little boys featured. This one over here that you can't see has a small whaling boat being overturned by the whale. Sort of marine life taking over human life, which is always a good story. Women featured in some of them. These would have been used, the baleen whale would have been, teeth would have been used as corset stays. So your husband might have, designed scrimshaw on it, and then you stuck the whalebone into your corset. Kind of neat. This one here, you can see has little holes bored in it. It's a cribbage board, and there's a few of those. So come investigate. To the right of this case, which I did not include in the talk, are other nautical instruments, spyglasses, a foghorn, which I love looking at because it's literally a box with a crank, and that's not what I imagine when I hear a foghorn in my head. Things like torpedo logs, which looks like a torpedo, and you would have thrown it in the water, and it was attached to a maritime dial on the back of the boat, and it would have told you how fast you were going. Speed in wind and nautical miles is measured in knots, K-N-O-T-S. And so this torpedo log you would have thrown it in, and it would have turned, and it literally would have knotted. So you're measuring knots. And so I thought that was just so wonderfully logical and interesting that, nautical speed was measured in something so practical. How many times your thing knots? In 2012, Ships of the Seas board, and Mills Lane had originally wanted to do this. They had an opportunity to act on it. They decided to create an event space. So you can see the larger oak trees sitting in front of the Scarbrough House here. And this was a carriage and auto body shop. At some point, SCAD bought it and was knocking it down and wanted to build another SCAD department building. But there's a sycamore tree, which probably is was 200 years old. So definitely from the time of Scarborough, SCAD wanted to build this building. Their designs meant the building came too close to the sycamore tree, and they said, fine, never mind, we're not going to build here because the sycamore tree is really a pain. So Ships of the Sea bought it and created an event space. Here's the back of the Scarbrough House, probably 1990s, 2000s, with little kids having a picnic. And so going from this garden, you walk sort of east-west. This is the entrance to the garden over here. If you kept walking across here, it would look like this. So you're exiting Scarbrough Garden, moving into the North Garden. This is a view from above. So the maple trees are on the eastern side. The house, let's see, this is so disorienting, is right here. So this is south, this is north, this is west. This is the covered assembly room where people have probably seen Music Fest and other things. This is our pergola garden, which has an exit onto MLK. We're hoping to sell coffee and things like that shortly. Here's the view from there looking west. So that's the original Scarborough's gatehouse, and then immediately next to that, we've retained some of the elements from the carriage house. These I-beams are their original wall, and we've just planted it with all kinds of ivy, yew trees, some wisteria and climbing vines, ivy and things like that. This garden over here, which we should be able to see in a second, this is the assembly room. John McEllen is the person who planted both the Scarbrough Garden for Mills Lane and did the garden for the North Assembly Room. And so all of these plants are native plants, water-loving plants to sort of catch any overflow. There's a citrus garden with bananas and other citrus there. This is our Belvedere. All kinds of brides get married every fall and spring. Friday and Saturday, some weekends, and they all love to have this money shot picture on the Belvedere with the Talmadge Bridge in the background. There are reflecting pools looking south, towards the entrance and the parking lot of Ships of the Sea on the other side of that. So part of what, well, let me back up 1 second. The Sisters Garden I did not put in here, but at the end of this maple grove is another garden. And it's been planted with things that the trustees would have brought over or found and tried to cultivate in 1833 when they first arrived. It's probably the most unattractive part of our garden, but I do love it because it's beautiful rosemary, amazing roses that are in bloom right now and smell divine, mulberry trees, fig trees. What else is in there? Pomegranate tree. It's nice. It's from a food and herbal standpoint. It's lovely. So we've got lots of different things going on and ways to learn. Most of the kids that come in today sort of do a 3-part tour. You go on a garden tour, you go inside and do an activity in our classroom, and you take a tour of the museum. So we're really trying to utilize the full space to the best that we can. So part of what I am really excited about doing at Ships of the Sea is not just telling 300 years of history, but moving our history into the present day. Because the Port of Savannah is making history every single day. The number of cargo and container ships that come into our river is just off the charts. I met with the Georgia Ports Authority last week, and they said, yeah, we love that idea, and we'll help you. So there are 4 types of cargo ships that come into Savannah. The container ship, which are so pretty. I feel like, you just can't help but like the Lego style of these ships. Tankers that bring gas, break bulk ships, which are picking up grain, fertilizer, wood pellets, clay, Georgia kaolin clay are being shipped out on those. And they don't have containers on top. It's just more of a low silhouette and holds inside that contain the places to put the cargo. And roll on, roll off truck carriers. So those are the 4 types. We were given last summer by a company called Sega Welco a break bulk container ship, a break bulk cargo ship, not containers, cargo. And it's like 6 feet long, 2 feet across, very cool looking, impressive looking. And I called Frank Peoples, who owns Peoples Industries, also east of the Truman Parkway, and said, so Frank, do I want this model? And 2, what is the story of Savannah that can be told? Like, if it doesn't have a Savannah story, I really don't think I should take it, because then I'm just collecting junk. And he said, no, you definitely want it. It's like a $30,000 piece of art. A model is also a very artistic creation, one of kind. And secondly, he himself had shipped Georgia kaolin from Savannah to Japan on that exact ship. It was the Hosanger. So I'm thrilled to have sort of this start on what we're wanting to do now, talking about a new phase of life. Oops, I went too fast. So anyway, new features like bringing kids into the garden. We had our first inside party recently in June. Well, not recently, but in June of last year. The Women's Initiative of Hunter McLean came, and we did a full tour. It was a great night. The museum had just been in a different trajectory. They weren't interested necessarily in bringing in vast quantities of people or sharing the history on, in new ways than they had typically done, which was fine. So we're really trying to get new people in, host groups. I've got a Rotary Club coming. I've got book clubs that are coming. If you want to come, tell us. And we've got me or interpreters and curators who can take you through. This Celestial Seafarers is an event that we're doing May 22nd and 23rd. May 22nd is National Maritime Day. And most people don't know about it. I think maritime industries celebrate it, but if you're not in the maritime industry, you're probably not going to know about it. May 22nd was the day that the steamship Savannah left on its transoceanic voyage. In 1933, the United States Congress declared Maritime Day May 22nd because of the importance of the steamship Savannah. It was the first steam-powered ship to go over an ocean. So we are claiming that as our day and the opportunity to really broadcast the importance of ships of the sea, our maritime history, and supporting what we're doing at the museum. So we are doing sound and light and art installations in the gardens and in the house on both nights, 7:30 to 10:30, because you need it to be dark in order to see the lights. We will have projections on the back of the house, sound installations inside the house, and 8 artists total, but they will have things throughout the garden. One person wants to do something on king tides, and he's hanging rubber duckies at the level that the king tide would hypothetically reach. The guy who's doing sound design, Joshua Alexander, in the building. When you walk up the stairs from the first floor to the second floor, there's a text panel that shows that cute picture of the graduates of the West Broad Street School lined up in front of the house, and you're going to hear children laughing as you ascend and witness them. Marcus Kenny's involved, Will Penny, who has done a light projection on Laney Contemporary Gallery, if you've been out there, which is also on Millsby Lane Boulevard. It's going to be an awesome party. Tickets are $20 or $60 for a VIP. You get a membership and 2 drinks if you join at VIP level. So that's going to be really fun. I hope everyone will think about it. I've got some cards spread out on the table if you want to take one with you. Bring your friends. Join us. We have a new exhibition program. Tanya Salmon's our curator, is sitting at the back of the room, and I'm so thrilled to have her working with me. We worked together at Telfair and had a good time doing it then, so we're doing it again. We're doing an exhibition of Georgia Sea Grant Artist, Scholar, Writer grant recipients. This is just 2 of them, Jennifer Noland on the left and Kip Bradley on the right. Their work is this is sort of out of scale, so not making sense visually, but both will have paintings featured in it alongside, Tanya, how many other artists?
There are 10 total.
10 total artists who are involved. One's a choreographer. There will be some video, some interactive pieces. It's going to be really fun. So the opening night is June 5th. We will have a family day that's June 29th, totally family friendly. The University of Georgia Marine Extension is doing this exhibition with us, and they're bringing a touch tank with animals in it, aquarium animals that you can touch. So that will be really fun. It's also going to be a mashup with Maritime After Hours. So people in the maritime industries are welcome to come. Everyone's welcome. It's free and open to the public, but we're hosting them in an effort to try to really, connect with as many Savannahans as possible. So Maritime After Hours will be at the museum. We'll have a hot dog cart, Leopold's ice cream, cash bar. It's going to be a party. The next exhibition after that is called Sea of Ink, Savannah Maritime Tattoos. It opens Friday, September 19th. And actually, it's a Thursday, September 19th. So we've messed up a little bit here. Someone texted me about that yesterday. Anyway, we have done research and met some people around town who have maritime tattoos, and we are photographing them. The 2 photographers are Mike Schalk and Tom Sanders. Tom teaches at SCAD. Mike's a SCAD grad who shoots practically all the Savannah magazine covers every month. So the 2 of them will document these people's tattoos, take portraits of them, and then we'll also have some portraits of the tattoo artists in their tattoo parlors, tattoo stores. It is going to be really fun, and it's going to open in September. It will stay open through Maritime Day next year, May 22nd, and we will have a huge closing party to celebrate the end of that exhibition. But it's a really fun thing that we think will bring a different audience. You know, often people think museums are really stuffy, that, you know, only certain kind of people go, and we are really trying to break that mold and welcome all of Savannah, young and old. We did a class this past fall with the Learning Center, senior citizens. We have Tybee Island Maritime Academy kids have come in over the last 3 months, first grade, third grade, fourth grade, and the middle school art kids, art program. We've had the REP program, Work Readiness Enrichment Program. It's African-American kids, 16 and 17, boys 16 and 17, who have been in the Department of Justice system and are not allowed to go back to school, and so they do their schoolwork at Frank Callan Boys and Girls Club, and they took a field trip. They were our first education class to come through in January, and they declared it their favorite field trip ever. We were thrilled. It was tough because it was our first time. Literally, no children had come through Ships of the Sea for 4 years. So we really, we're doing a big swing. You know, it's like a container ship trying to make a big turn, and we're getting there. And it's been really exciting and fun. We work with Deep Center, Loop It Up, SCAD, who am I forgetting? Savannah Tree Foundation. We did a canopy crawl and did tours of the museum and tours of the garden with them. If you work for a nonprofit and want to partner or a for-profit, let me know, because we're excited about embedding ourselves in a new way in the Savannah community and making it fun, because maritime is really fun. So, any questions? Yeah.
So when it became a school in the 1870s, did the school board buy it directly from the
So
family?
I skipped over a little section of history, and I was kicking myself when I realized I did it. So there was a woman who named Margaret O'Byrne who bought the house from the Scarboroughs in the late 1850s. The Civil War then happened. Her husband died like right when she moved into the house. Her two sons were in the in the party that surrendered Savannah to Sherman. They got lost in the fog. Like, it was, again, a really bad moment for her family, the house, etc. So she was like, forget it. I'm leaving Savannah. The Civil War has tired me out. I don't know where she ended up. But she sold the house to the Catholic diocese. Catholic diocese somehow sells it to the Episcopalian diocese. The Episcopalian diocese sells it to George Dorin. We've all been down Dorin Avenue. George Dorin was really fabulous because he then gave it to the City of Savannah School Board with the caveat that it be a school for black children. So really, because of him, they had this school. It was previous to the Civil War. All the black education happened in secret schools. We all know about Susie King Taylor and the efforts she did. There were lots of those that supposedly were in service, but sort of the authorities turned a blind eye to it as long as people weren't openly reading and writing. So this was the first moment when kids in Savannah could go to a school for them and learn to read and write like everybody else. So 1873 is when it opened as West Broad Street School, a City of Savannah public school. But it was a school, I think the Catholic diocese was running school in there. I don't know if it was strictly black or not. I don't know if, Tanya, you remember.
I think it was.
It was black then too? Okay, so Catholic and Episcopalians were doing that work. Yeah, it was good.
What was the fuel on the SS steamship they used?
Coal. So when you come into the museum, some of the ships have little cutaways, and you can peek in and see what the sailors would have been doing under there. The best part about that model, the paddle wheels folded up so that if you were sailing, you know, you're going to tip in your boat, and you didn't want to rip your paddle wheel off because it can't keep up with the waves or it's going to get buffeted. So the paddle wheels would have folded. They show that on the model. And then on the side of it, you can see a guy in there loading coal into the engine to create the steam power. So it's cool. Anybody else? Yeah.
What about the third story of the house that was added and then taken off? Was that taken off because they wanted to restore the house to its original form, or
Exactly.
or was it just in such a decrepit
Which I think
shape?
is sort of, it probably was in bad shape, and maybe the authenticity of the architecture was not the same as the first and second floors, I imagine. Because Historic Savannah Foundation, especially back then, I would assume, was making very strategic decisions on the story they wanted to tell, which was very much William J. focused, and probably had to do with the ability to save it and preserve it. And after 90 years as a school, I think that it probably was in such bad shape that they took it off. Let me go back.
Is the hip structure that's on the top, is that still there? Because you can't really see it if you're...
So the backyard really looks like that.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like. We went on the scaffolding last week to see the repairs that they had made and just go through like, okay, yes, you fixed this crack and here's where it was, and this was leaking and you had leaks on the other side, proving it, so that sort of thing. And the roof was redone in the last 10 years.
but is it a flat roof
No,
now? Or
it's a
does
peaked
the
roof.
hip- It does have the hip?
Yeah, and it's silver, so it's some kind of metal structure. I wish I had pictures. I think I did take a picture, and
Well,
I'll
some of
show
the
you
pictures-
afterwards.
Some of the pictures do show the hip structure, but maybe I just haven't paid that much attention. There's one.
This one?
No, that
Oh,
that
I see what you're saying. Yes, looking at the front of it. Sorry. Yes, so it looks like that. That is what the house looks like. And I think that drawing from Historic Savannah Foundation, this one.
Yeah,
That one. It looks like that. The center part, I don't think ended up like that. That looks more Widow's Walk. It's really just a peaked piece of glass that sort of goes the other direction than the roof looks like in this. So, yes.
Mr. J was a fascinating man. Have you featured him, or do you plan to feature him?
Well, the foremost expert on William J. is Tanya Sammons. So I've hired the right person. And she's busy working on her biography of Mary Haskell Minus, the Muse to Khalil Gibran. So I'm hoping maybe after that she'll do something on William J. And she has friends at the Sir John Soane Museum. We think that Jay might have learned things from Soane. I went to the Soane Museum in January and was trying to meet with them. We would love to do an exhibition on Sir John Soane, bringing in William J. We have tentatively booked our exhibition schedule through fall of 05, maybe 2026, spring of 2026, depending on how things shake out in the next few months. But we're looking long term, and Jay is a really interesting man, and he died young. He died sort of impoverished and having not achieved what probably he was capable of, which is too bad. He has lots of features in this house that are very showy. He has curved plaster walls. The doors in those walls curve as well, and that is a real feat to steam a huge pine door into the same exact shape that the wall takes, and there's two up and down. There's probably 3 rooms that have those doors. So that's really beautiful. The cornices are a lot like the Owens Thomas house. If you haven't been in the Ships of the Sea, it's a recessed cornice with these beautiful acanthus leaf decoration sort of in front of it. Lots of details that are really neat. The fan light in the front that you can see in this picture. All of the windows have these little fans over them as well. There were some French doors in the ballroom that we think have been changed. Maybe Godfrey Barnsley, when he was redoing the 3rd floor, changed some things. But it's a really beautiful house. My husband is the dean of building arts at SCAD and an architect, and this is his favorite house. So I feel like that counts for something. So, any other questions? Yeah.
I make the general comment. I do a lot of historical research, mainly Georgia history, and almost nothing has ever been written about Georgia maritime history. Almost nothing has ever been published, and there's a lot of source material about it. If you ever see the opportunity, that's a topic right now it's a big blank in Georgia history.
Interesting. Well, if we should talk afterwards, you and me and Tanya, we can talk about what's out there, because I'm having to raise money, pay bills, manage people, and so my research time is low, and I'm not really a curator, and I don't want to do that. So
If nothing else, a student.
yeah,
in
exactly.
history
Well,
that is doing
Irini is a curatorial
dissertation.
student and a curatorial intern and art history student. We have another intern doing that, and we have a curatorial assistant who helps Tanya. So I think it's a great idea. I would love to do that. And Mills Lane did write 4 books documenting the Ships of the Seas collection, but he did not cover the models, and he gets into some history, like he has one on Savannah and the Civil War, but it's not very deep. So I think there is a lot of opportunity, and I appreciate you pointing that out because we'd love to get it known. Yeah.
Do you have anything, or are you planning to do anything with Ocean Steamship Company?
So they are featured in our Savannah Line room. You visited before? Yeah, so you know it. Again, I'm really naive. So any ideas that people have, throw them out because we, are eager and willing to collaborate. Tanya is knee deep in like 9 million other things. These 2 exhibitions that we have planned, as well as some pre-planning for what's after that, which means that not all of the collection and ideas get looked at as deeply as we can. The museum has really been in its current configuration for 25 years. So it's not going to move anytime soon. We do have plans. Mills Lane, the 4th, really wanted to build a new education building. In 2022, we hired Christian Sotil to draft plans. We have those plans, and we will hope to move forward in the next 3 to 5 years to make that new education building a reality. It would be similar massing of the current Scarbrough House immediately south in the 7 parking spaces that face MLK and moving in to our parking lot, sort of where a median begins. There's a tree there. The new building would knock down 1 tree. It would preserve the 3 trees that are in the front. And it's really gorgeous. It also touches on Sir John Stone, his designs to bring both the William J. building and just imagining what a future appropriate Maritime Museum building would look like into this really gorgeous design that is a perfect partner to the Scarbrough House. So that is on the horizon too. So stay tuned. Thanks so much, you all. I appreciate it.
So I'll just mention 2 things real quick. If you do want to see the Chinese ballstone, we do have it downstairs and display in the research room I can take you to afterwards. And it actually was removed from the pavement down on River Street during some public works improvements, and I was alerted by local historians and archaeologists who are all very, very fond of the Chinese ballstone, and we were able to track it down with city staff. But we use it to talk about 3 stories. One, which Molly sort of alluded to, how international our port was with ballaststone coming in from all over the world. 2, these are little features that how many people walked over that ballaststone and never looked down. And it's a reminder to just stop. What's great about Savannah is all this interwoven tapestry and history. And then 3rd, we use it as a teaching tool for our city staff that could they have done their work and left it in place so future generations would have seen it in context. It's great that we have it, it's on display, but it probably would have been better if it remained part of the pavement down there. So we talk about preservation in place while we're trying to do our modern work. The second thing I wanted to mention, there are one of the program surveys on the table if you want to give us some feedback, but there's also a little brochure about the City Hall restoration project. So we are also a historic site. We are a working office building, but we're in the middle of a restoration project, and we hope to start construction on the interior later this year. So if you're interested in about this historic site, please take one of those. And I hope to see you guys next month. Thank you. And thank you so much, Samara. Let's give her another commitment.